Welcome, everyone. It's 6:01, and today is Mr. Feely's birthday. So we want to get him out of here as soon as possible so he could get on with his celebration. Okay, so we do have an agenda. So we're going to do roll call first, if that's okay. And I'm going to look away from the screen. So is it okay if I make you a co-host, Cynthia?
Sure.
And maybe I'll engage Daniel and maybe he can help me too. And we could just take a roll call. Okay, Daniel. I'm sorry, Daniel.
I heard
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, there, I hear you now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Violetta is not here. Cynthia,
Here.
Lenny, Hoppenworth here. Dr. Plunkett.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. And Rachel Zen, and she is not here. Okay, and then we're going to do an approval of the agenda, and we're going to do a couple things a little bit different from what I sent out. We're going to move Mr. Feely up, and we're going to remove item 6H, which is a redundant. I had restorative justice, Mr. Mitchell on there. So I'm going to remove that, but we can leave that part open for discussion if that's okay. And then I'll call a roll for us who are here for an approval of the agenda. Daniel?
Second.
Cynthia?
Yes. Yeah, I said yes. Did I say yes? Yeah, okay.
Lenny? Yes. Dr. Plunkett? Thanks, everyone. I think I have a delay in mine, so sorry. Thanks for your patience with that. Okay, and then let's go on to Mr. Feely right now, and then we'll continue on with the agenda. So thank you so much, Mr. Feely, for coming on and talking to us about peer conferencing. I know just very superficially about peer conferencing and very interested in the topic as it relates to restorative justice. But if you could just give us a brief intro of yourself and how you came about to this program and how it's going since it got started, that would be fantastic.
Fantastic, will do. And there's 4 people in the room who are very, very involved in this. Danielle, myself, Ms. Lalagan, and Mr. Mitchell. So basically, about a year ago, we entered into a contract with Alternatives, Inc., which is located on the north side, and they've been providing us training. We started around this time last year and finished just in time before the end of the school year with the first cohort, which started with 15 students, most of whom are current juniors and seniors. And then we just finished with the second cohort. Last week was our last official meeting. And so our next step is that we are going to finally get the opportunity for the kids from the first and second cohort who wish to continue to proceed down this road to be part of the advanced training. At this point, the folks from the first 2 cohorts have had, like I said, the initial training, which at this moment provides them the preparation to engage in talking circles. And talking circles are about building community, building relationships, getting kids around, like sitting in a circle and talking in a very structured way about things that matter to them. It's great for community building. It's great for opening hearts. It's great for recognizing that a lot of them have the same concerns, hopes, struggles. And it's kind of like it's the preventative side of restorative justice practice. Under almost any circumstances, the majority of the work will always be talking circles. But speaking of the next step, the advanced training that we're going to have next, which is coming in the form of a 1-day 6-hour training. Cindy and I will have one 6-hour day training, and then we'll have another one with the students who choose to proceed down this path, which is great because attendance has been difficult with all of the requirements and the extracurriculars that our students are engaged in. So once we finish the 1-day 6-hour training, the students will be equipped to host what are known as peace circles or conflict circles. And peace circles, also known as conflict circles, are circles that are engaged in when there has been some harm imposed. Somebody or some people have imposed harm on one or more people. And it looks a lot like a talking circle, only it has some elements that demand that everything gets fleshed out in a very systematic way. And the last part of it is repairing the harm. I've only personally engaged in one of those, but I'm telling you, it was fantastic. It was magic, and it's really relatively simple. I couldn't do one yet, but I'm not ready to do one yet, but I will be ready to do one, and so will all our students as well. So I'm really excited about this. One of the misconceptions I feel in our community and in lots of communities about restorative justice practice is that it's always going to be conflict circles, or also known as peace circles, when in fact, I expect those to be powerful and needed and utilized, but it will probably always be a minority of the work. Okay, let's see. I dropped into the chat a document that Cindy and I cobbled together in recent weeks. Let's see. Oh yeah, so one of the challenges that we've had is that the second cohort's attendance started to be poor about halfway through. And Cindy and I were lamenting that, and we were kind of puzzled by that. And you know, I talked to other teachers about this as well, and a lot of them said, well, Fran, like the kids are under duress. A lot of them are having a lot of issues and challenges, their schoolwork, all these other commitments. A lot of the students that joined the restorative justice program are kids who have their fingers in a lot of pies. So it kind of turned out to be kind of advantageous because kids would come irregularly, but when they did come, we would have smaller groups so we could have more circle practice for the kids who did show up. And at the end of the day, it takes practice and it takes heart and it takes sensitivity, but it's not rocket science. It's not like there's not so many moving parts that you have to be at every training to really get it into your bones. And there's been some great circles in recent weeks, both at our trainings, our regularly scheduled trainings. In the last month or so, we've welcomed first cohort folks to join us, and some have dropped into those. And we've also been having some drop-in sessions during the second ACT Lab of the week in Library Room 2. And that's been great too. And so that's where we're at, and we're building from there. Another thing, we do have a link that I'll put in the chat in a second. It's also on this document, which is one way to get some circles going. And it's just a form that any teacher or student can fill out, and then we can schedule a circle for them. I think it's really important that we get the message out that you don't have a circle only when there's something negative going on. It's something that it's available at all times to celebrate things, to work on challenges, and to just build relationship. It's hard to explain, but in the last month or so, we've been having these circles where like the vibration in the room is different, like there's just like, we're here and we're doing this. And I don't expect every circle to be spectacular. Some of them are just okay, but we're building capacity and it takes time. Oh, and finally, we are definitely gonna have that third cohort. I'm sorry, no. We're definitely gonna have the advanced training, but we're not quite sure if we're gonna have a third cohort during the remainder of this semester. We think so, but it's just kind of a numbers game on the side of alternatives in Chicago Public Schools. Our Samantha Artiega, who's our current trainer, she is pretty sure it's going to work out that we'll be able to have both of those things going on the second semester, but I'm being quiet about it for now because we might not be able to host a third cohort. It's just a matter of resources. Okay, any questions? Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Lalagan, you have it? Oh, and Daniel, of course, as well. Those are the other three people in the room who are very intimately acquainted with this work. So if you have any thoughts, please jump in. I'll post this other form. as well.
I do have a question, and I'll open it up to anybody else who has questions too. Thank you so much for presenting. I have a friend, Judy Galo, who used to be the executive director at Alternatives, who we had coffee about when she started this at CPS. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about this and how it's being implemented at Jones. And I guess the thing that's on my mind is, how do you see, you're talking about cohorts, how do you see this being introduced to the bigger body, the student body, so that everybody knows, how to plug in and how it works and how they can get involved? Because I would hate that for this resource to be only available to those who come into conflict, right? It sounds like a fantastic relationship building opportunity for anybody, even if you're not in crisis.
It's a good question. One of the things that we tried in the first semester that didn't really get off the ground was, first step was, all right, you guys have this training and you're involved in all of these organizations. Why don't we host circles for those organizations? This club, that team. And we had almost zero. Everybody was like, oh, we'll do it next semester when we have this special thing. I'm like, no, let's do it now. So that's been one of the things that's been very puzzling for us. As far as how to get it out, we do have a form, and it's not working. We still need to we need to raise our visibility. We are using some of the discretionary money to get T-shirts for the folks in the cohorts, as well as anybody who comes until they are depleted, and then maybe we'll get some more of that. That's one way. I suppose we could reach out to ACLAB teachers. I mention it in my library newsletter about every other time. In fact, I'm going to do that tomorrow. Everybody else jump in. What else can we do to bring this to the awareness of the wider community?
We just started having talking circles in ACLAB, where in the library, and we've been able to bring in some people outside of those who are being trained, and to talk about what we sort of feel like current topics of interest to Jones students. I think that's been going well.
Yeah, I love that idea that it's being introduced in a place that's already organized for people to gather, and kind of an open place like ACLAB. What's interesting about these restorative justice circles is that they're inspired by Indigenous people. And so I guess I don't know how many Indigenous people are at Jones, but I'm curious if you've ever considered, working on land acknowledgements and that kind of thing as you're continuing on to promote restorative justice circles. I don't know. Maybe that's way too far from what your goal is, but I also feel like we should point to where it kind of started.
I have two responses to that. One, I like that idea. I've been finding myself in settings a lot more lately where there are land acknowledgements. And furthermore, we purchased a number of books called The Talking Stick. It's beautiful. It's RJ through a much more Indigenous people's lens, and it's really wonderful. And I've got multiple copies. So if anybody wants that, just swing by the library. And yes, these practices have emanated from Indigenous peoples over a lot of time. And that's why we sit in a circle. And there's a couple of things that we have not been able to do that are routine because of COVID procedures, COVID mitigations. And one of them is actually having something like a talking stick, and it can be anything. And usually it's something that has some resonance or meaning. And then another thing that we haven't done, but we're starting to do, is to have a centerpiece, which basically represents the fire that you would be sitting around in an Indigenous community engaged in a talking circle. And it has a couple of things positive about that. It represents the fire, represents the warmth in the community, but it's also where people can put their eyes when they're digging down and trying to express things that are harder to do while they're looking in people's eyes. So you can look up, look in people's eyes, but you could look down at the centerpiece. It's a great strategy.
Really wonderful. Anybody else have any other comments or questions?
I have a quick question. I'm wondering about, I feel like the problem with student engagement is probably not limited to Jones, and it's just in general trying to get students to kind of warm up to a new or unfamiliar practice. Maybe it just takes certain strategies. And I guess I'm just curious if either of you or Daniel or Eric or Dr. Plunkett, if any of you have like read about other schools like successfully kind of getting that engagement piece in, and kind of like a narrative arc of like how these talking circles become successful and like mainstays in schools. Yeah, that's, I guess I'm just wondering.
I can respond. I have a thought about that. Last year and this year, we're going to have a virtual summit where our students who are engaged in this program have the opportunity to meet online with students from many other schools, including 7th and 8th graders, all the way up to 12. And when we engage in those summits, they were like two-hour events on different days. Last year, I'm not sure how it's going to work this year. We would be grouped in settings with some of our folks from our own school and people from other schools, and even sometimes like middle school kids. So I just wanted to know, that that's happening, but more to the point, I think we need to connect with some of the other teachers who are engaging their students this way about how to build this up fast. By the way, Daniel did an absolutely beautiful circle. He's done a number recently too, but he did one in the fall with ALAS at an ALAS meeting. Who was your partner on that one?
It was Sophia Cruz.
Oh, Sophia Cruz, yeah. You guys were the forerunners. And I want you to do some more before you graduate, Daniel. Okay. Yeah, so I'll make a point of reaching out to Samantha and getting me hooked up with some of the other moderators. Because I didn't think that part was going to be hard. I thought everyone would be running toward this, and it is hard. During these ACT labs, sometimes we have invited people in advance, and sometimes I'm literally going out on the floor and saying, "Hey, come on in. Come in here. Try this out." We got to be a little bit more systematic.
Yeah, I love the idea of having some kind of talking item stick or something. I have a friend who is doing a project around the city with different groups of people in different neighborhoods, and she's finding it really interesting. It's around it involves art, so talking circles with art, and she wants to do it outside, but she says, in some neighborhoods, she's like, yeah, and we could go on the corner, at laundromats and, bring people together. And I just find it interesting because she said at one point, somebody said, no, not in my neighborhood. We're not going to stand on a corner and have a peace circle, So I want to acknowledge that our students come from all over the city. And however space you're creating to make it a safe space for people can open up and connect with each other is so important. So I thank you, Mr. Feely, for doing that. And everyone else here who's involved in those in the creation of that restorative justice program. It's super important.
Yeah, thanks. I feel the same way. It's a privilege, and we work hard to make it flourish.
All right. Well, at the same time, we all say, happy birthday.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Enjoy.
Thanks, folks. Thanks for going out of order. Have a good one. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Welcome, Rachel. We're just we're going over the I did put together just a little slide deck just to keep me coordinated here. And then we were going to do approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I don't know if everybody got a chance to look at those. I sent them out by email. If that's okay, we could just go through a vote. Daniel?
Do we have to second and stuff like that, or is that not I thought we had to do that here.
I think we should do that, yeah.
Ah.
Thank you. Go ahead, do it.
Yeah, I'll second.
Thank you, Daniel. Daniel?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Now, if I didn't actually get a chance to read it, should I just abstain then?
Sure.
Okay, abstain.
Lenny? Yes. Dr. Plunkett?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have a quorum, yes. So that passes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we don't have anybody signed up for public participation, but anybody is welcome to have any announcements at this time. We had an inquiry about joining as a permanent member from somebody who had participated in on these calls, but I don't see them here. So we're just gonna move forward, if that's okay with everyone. So at this time, we're gonna pass it to Cynthia to talk about updates on COVID.
Okay. I just dropped a link in the chat. So you should be able to see that now. And so the big thing, could someone read it? Is it
Does
working?
it need permission?
You need permission? Darn it. Okay, let's see. Share. Let's see. Change to anyone with the link, probably. Okay, let's try it. You want to try it again?
Good now.
Okay, good. So I'll start with the transition to mask optional was the big thing for today. And I'll just go through the timeline a bit. So back on March 7th, CPS announced a move to mask optional policy. And then the next day, the CTU filed an unfair labor practice charge against the district, since that was part of the agreement back in January, I guess. And then Dr. Powers sent next on my document is that Dr. Powers had noted, gave us some guidance on in the Eagle flight, basically asking us to, stating the policy, as well as being it's important to listen and model positive, supportive, and accepting behaviors. We are especially worried about bullying and disruptive behavior, and it felt good that there was support from our administration on that we could report problems to our school leadership. And then let's see. And then on March 11th, the Building Safety Committee requested more masks and asked Dr. Powers to ask CPS to get more masks, since we had been to other safety committee at the CTU safety committee office hours, and they let us know that there were masks in warehouses somewhere that we could get to. And Dr. Powers agreed to reach out to CPS that same day. So today, then we moved to mask optional. We also got here early and distributed about another 600 KN95 masks from 7 to 8 this morning. We approximately have about another 500 left. And Mr. Feely has been basically willing to give out KN95 masks to students and staff, anyone who stops by. And then Mr. Hilbrand's also is asking if we have suggestions on what to do with some of the other various cloths masks that they have in the school. Let's see. So over the weekend, I was trying to put together resources and additional information and resources on mask optional. And fortunately, a CDC report just came out finding that school districts that required masks in schools saw fewer COVID-19 cases than districts that didn't. Over 233 school districts in Arkansas that had found districts with universal mask requirements had a 23% lower incidence of COVID among staff members and students than districts without the requirements. And then the study link is there. Another thing that I was very confused about was that's an article that just came out on the CDC's new COVID metrics. I'm not sure I understand all the details on how they how the data sort of changed. But if Lenny, would you, if you want to go down a little bit to show those maps? I mean, basically overnight, the maps that we were looking at changed from the red and orange to the green and yellow, making it seem that, I mean, great, the rates are definitely going down with Omicron, but to have this kind of change was confusing. And unfortunately, there was an article that came out over the weekend that explained this confusion, basically that there was a change in how that they were looking at the data, and that you can still find the orange and red maps. And if you look at the green, if you look at the COVID community levels, it says that we're low in Cook County, but then if you look at the transmission levels, it shows that we still have substantial COVID transmission. So again, just this confusion is something that we should be aware of, at least. And because when I first sent the email that's below, I just looked at the community levels, which said low, and we have such a high vaccination rate at Jones as well, that the masks coming off should not be of any issue, perhaps. But if you look at this other map and look at that's basically more focused on transmission rates versus, I think, hospital rates, then maybe we want to, keep all these in consideration, maybe just take a closer look. And so if you look a little further down, the next thing is the fact that we are starting to try to, and then here's our substantial reading for, and it's March 14th, so it's current. And then we're also trying to get the phone bank going. I worked with Mr. Mitchell last week and the front office trying to get the information that we need for that, to get that going. Especially if we're not going to have, we haven't had physical distancing in a high school. It's not really possible. And then if we don't have masking as well, then we really have to rely on testing and vaccination. Fortunately, if you look down a little further, we have very high vaccination rate. And but there are some gotchas on both sides, right? We have 45% who registered for testing, but we don't have anywhere near that actually testing on a regular basis. And then also we have a really super high vaccination rate, but we have no idea of where we are in the boosters. And there's a lot of articles coming out now on the fact that boosters wane, and that that to be up to date, the students have to have their boosters. Fortunately, the district did sort of like request or a mandate, I'm sure, that the staff have the booster by March 1st, or at least tell people that they didn't have it and they would have to get tested. Is there anything else? Let's see. So we're trying to get these phone bankers.
Dr. Plunkett had a question. Did you want to take questions now?
It wasn't actually a question, it was more of a comment. So I know just about the testing, we do have like a lot more people registered for testing than we did, and that's great, but not everyone is coming down and getting tested. And I know that some of the people that are registered for testing have had COVID, a positive COVID test in the last 90 days. So if you have been diagnosed with COVID in the past 90 days, you're not supposed to test. So that might be why some people aren't testing. I just wanted to put that out there, that might be why, even though a person is registered, that they are not necessarily testing because they've had COVID, and it doesn't matter, because they're going to always test positive on a PCR. Well, not always, but the chances of them testing positive on a PCR are pretty high, even though they've already been diagnosed in the previous 90 days. So that might be one reason. And I think sometimes with the with the decrease in positivity, people might not feel that the testing is as important. And that's just kind of based on anecdotal, like talking to students, asking them, oh, are you going to test? Well, why not? Oh, well, you know, for whatever reason, either I had COVID already, so I'm not going to test anymore, or well, the positivity rate is really low. I know I check it every day in Chicago, and today the positivity in Chicago is 0.7%. So, I mean, I guess that's good for Chicago. It's not all of Cook County, but I guess that's good for Chicago. So I just wanted to share, like, those are maybe some reasons why people aren't testing as much as they were in the previous couple months.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Plunkett. So I think that's all I had to say. And any questions?
Can you just comment on the phone banks and if you have started those and how those are going?
Yeah, so this email was trying to get people to volunteer to be, well, and to get paid to be a phone banker. And we haven't gotten a lot of response, I think, but I think I did actually miss, I think I probably sent the email out to faculty and maybe not all of the staff. So I'm going to try to zero in on people that I knew were sort of interested in it more, and make sure that they got this email. So it hasn't started yet.
I have a quick question as well. Or I guess I just want, yeah, I have a comment. Thank you for putting this together. I've been wondering about like where schools are at, because outside of like communal settings, I feel like COVID is just kind of, at least in the city of Chicago, yeah, people are ready to never wear a mask again. Some people, and then there are others who are, you know, firmly going to keep their mask on. And I guess I'm just wondering, from a admin and teacher perspective and student perspective as well, how is the mask optional policy? Like, do people have strong opinions about it, or is it kind of like expected at this point?
I mean, I can tell you as a teacher what I witnessed, and then, but I see other hands going up. So go ahead, Mr. Mitchell, and then Miss Dr. Plunkett.
No, I mean, Rachel's a great question, but today was just day one of it, right? For the last week or so, been engaging with students just in conversation about what it might look like. And so some students were, I'm going to keep mine on. Others were, you know, kind of on both sides of the fence. I think we had some healthier conversations about what interactions could possibly look like. And I think that people, and I'm using the I statement, I think people kind of prepared for the worst and just kind of looked around. Today, quite honestly, I saw more people with masks on and wearing it properly than before. It was kind of interesting. So that is where we are. I think people are still in a kind of wait and see phase. I think people are being genuinely respectful in different spaces, kind of like, this seems to be a space where more people are wearing their mask, and so some folks will put it on. Yeah, so after one day, the where are we is still kind of waiting and seeing, but a lot of respect across the board.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. And I would maybe echo what Mr. Mitchell said about this is only day one right now. Like we're just on day one. So, I mean, we really can't say too much about the mask optional, about how it's going. I know just from my anecdotal conversations that I've had with different students around the school, whether they prefer to wear a mask or prefer not to wear a mask. I've heard from both sides that there was a little bit of, I don't know if fear is the right word, maybe apprehension where like a student says, well, I want to keep my mask on, but I don't want to be shamed about it. Or the students who say, I don't really want to wear a mask, but I don't want to be put down for that because I don't think I should need to wear it. So, I mean, I think there's apprehension on both sides of the fence about being, being called out for either, So I think we just have to remember, like when we're dealing with the students, that there's two sides to everything, and whether or not teachers and other students disagree with their peers, we just have to remember to teach them that they must be respectful, because it is a decision that they are allowed to make now. So I just want to keep that out there, because I don't want any of our students, regardless of their choice, to feel uncomfortable, because at this juncture they are allowed to make a choice.
Thanks, Dr. Plunkett. Daniel?
I just want to echo that, like the last part that Blanca was mentioning on how, each student makes that choice. And I've seen a lot of people have made the choice to keep wearing it. And those who don't, like, everyone's respectful of each other, but there's still that feeling of uncomfortableness. I know a lot of students are feeling, that I was talking to today. Again, like, you respect the choices of others, and I haven't seen like confrontations or anything, but there still is their sense of uncomfortableness and but yeah, it's mainly respectful.
Yeah, thanks for your feedback, everyone. I have a friend who just went to a weekend-long conference, and all of them had their name tags, and they got to put the level of comfortableness that they would have if they were next to somebody. So red would be, 6 feet away, and then green would be, it's okay to be close, and, because masks were, again, like you said, optional. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see like how it all works. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of teachers are doing something like that, where we're surveying our students to find out what their comfort level is, and whether someone's unmasked in the classroom, if someone's unmasked in close proximity, like at a table next to them or ahead of them or behind them, or if they're at the same table, and what their comfort level is. And then I spent a lot of time after school today trying to moving seating assignments around so that students who are comfortable with people not being masked could sit together, and vice versa. Also, they could also let me know if they were planning on, at least for now, if they were going to plan to wear a mask or not. And I think that's helping. I'm hoping that makes our students more comfortable. Because I think it might be a little difficult for students to tell other students that they're uncomfortable if they're wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And maybe if they let me know, and then I move things around a little bit, then I can help with some of that comfort level. Daniel, does that make sense? Does that sound like it would work?
Yeah, I was about to just start typing. That sounds like a really good idea on Sly, and just like, that you're taking into account their feelings. Because I had some teachers ask us as well. It was just like, how do you feel? And it's not like taking action of like, moving seats to make people feel comfortable and stuff like that. I think it's a nice action. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I can just interrupt on that just a little bit. I think that's great, asking students comfortable, what they're comfortable with, and trying to accommodate. But also, I just want us to be really careful that not everybody's comfortable sharing. And so we just have to be really cognizant of the student who might not want to share why they want to keep a mask on or why they want to take it off, right? So, and it's not that anyone's asking why, but sometimes people get very, they don't necessarily want to share. So we just have to be cognizant of what we're asking people to share. I don't want any student to ever feel uncomfortable or ever to feel like they have to make a choice in one way or another to fit in based on what their friends are doing or their teachers are doing, right? So I just really want to make sure that, and like walking around the school, I didn't see any disrespect towards anyone today. And I just want to ensure that we just keep along that path either way, right? If someone wants to wear the mask for the next 10 years, you can wear a mask for the next 10 years, or if you don't, you don't. But we just really want to make sure that, we don't put our bias on other people, and make sure that everyone is comfortable.
Thanks, Dr. Plunkett. Rachel?
Yeah, thank you. Really quickly, I wanted to share something I saw today, which is like, you can't ask someone to take their mask off, right? That's kind of like, I think the line where some people have been at. I also think it's beyond like personal comfort, or I actually don't even know how I feel about masks right now. Like I was just on a flight, and every masks are 100% still required. They make the announcement. It's like, absolutely you have to have a mask on. They're making 3-year-olds put a mask on. And then you go to the grocery store and most people are masked. And then you go to a gym and no one's masked. And then I get into my classroom at UIC and I'm just kind of like, we're required to wear masks still there. So there's all these different public spaces. I just wanted to kind of vocalize, like, there may not be even like a solid opinion yet. And I just wanted to ask about it, because it's like it's a very bizarre time when we're not being told what to do or what not to do. We're kind of being told like, make up your mind, but we've been told what to do for the past 2 years. So yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. Does anyone else have any other comments? Thank you to the teachers and to the administrators and to the students who are trying to make it work, every day every hour as it changes, and as we're working through our feelings about what does it mean to feel safe around people again. This is where we need to come together, and to actually, this could be like a healing circle topic right here. Like how do we keep each other healthy and safe as we open up? Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left. So I'll bring Mr. Mitchell, if you can, to give us a whole school safety update.
I love the irony. I'm giving a safety update as I'm driving.
Oh God, please be careful now.
I am, as I've said before. Unfortunately, I've had many opportunities of doing just this. So I submitted the report for this month as relates to the whole school safety plan. Obviously, since I'm driving, I can't read it verbatim, so I'm going to try to hit the highlights as I remember them. The first component was centered around student physical safety, and as far as updates with that, we are still looking for a security officer. We've been making do with what we have. However, we could really use a new person, but we're not just going to settle for anyone. We have a couple of resumes, and we're looking to interview them in the very near future, but it's been very difficult to find the right fit for our security team at Jones. So that is something that's ongoing. I know that that money has been budgeted, and it will be there in the future. So, I mean, that's a good thing, but we haven't been able to solidify that just yet. In addition to physical safety, we have recently had a conversation around some additional cameras in some high traffic areas and some areas that would be considered blind spots. And so we're investigating what that can look like as well. So that's it for updates on physical safety. The second point on the plan was centered around SEL, if I'm not mistaken. So social emotional supports. And I think the update was centered around the work around New Route, which used to be called Emoja. Most recently, they have conducted student feedback and teacher feedback from the sessions that they provided in the fall. So we are looking to reconnect with them to get data, to analyze that feedback to improve the lessons moving forward. To the third point, we have hired our culture and climate coordinator. Mr. Lopez, he's been around since January 31st. And this week, we're excited about our School Spirit Week, which is something that he's kind of helped construct with our student government and with school leadership. So this is exciting. Today we had our student faculty volleyball game. Students won, but it was fun by all. And so we seem to be moving forward in a positive vein. The last area, and again, I'm kind of doing all this off of memory, was centered around mental health support. So we have created this year a behavioral health team. And as I mentioned last month, we needed to kind of get that behavioral health team back on track. We are getting support from the district, but the district support had been kind of paused due to some internal things at the district level. But they've kind of gotten back on track, and so we're looking forward to get back on track as well. But we did, as far as our plan is concerned, create a behavioral health team. Again, we're just working on this sustainability and making sure that it functions well. The other piece to that is we're supposed to have a community partner as it relates to mental health supports. The district, we signed up for this, and this is something that we were supposed to be getting for free, so it wouldn't have cost us anything. But it's been hard to figure out who our partner is supposed to be. The district kind of teased out community partners based upon there was an approach where you were supported through the network that you're a part of, or the district kind of paired you as an individual school with a community partner. And as an ISP school, we should have been tagged with the individual partnership, and that has not been clearly communicated. So I'm still working on finding that out. I literally talked to Michelle Jackson from the Office of Social Emotional Learning just the other day. So I'm hoping to get some clarity, and perhaps at our next meeting, I can say, unequivocally, here is our community partner, and here's how we're going to move forward with those supports. Again, the idea was to have this community partner so that we could offer additional mental health support, at minimal to no cost for all students. And I guess that is kind of the health and safety, our whole school safety plan update for March.
Thanks, Mr. Mitchell. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Mitchell? Thank you for being here, and thank you for driving safely. I'm just looking through the document now. It looks like you hit all the points. Any questions from Mr. Mitchell? Daniel?
Not really a question, but just a comment on Mr. Lopez as a climate culture coordinator. I think it's going well. I see him around the school a lot, actually, which is really nice. And he was at the dance, the Spanish Honor Society dance Friday, which is really nice. And just engaging with the students, and also this whole spring spirit week, sorry, and then the spring fling at the end. I think it's a really nice uplift when the weather's coming nice, but there's still the gloom of winter and all that. So I think it's the whole plan of the health and safety plan is going well. Sorry.
That's awesome. Thank you, Daniel. I was curious to know how the whole school safety plan was, trickling down to the students, and if you're actually feeling the impact of all this awesome work. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, I just took a survey that CPS sent me asking for my feedback on the whole school safety planning process. I don't know if others got that. So as I was filling it out, I was kind of thinking about this meeting. So I was like, we started working on it at the end of April. So it's been almost a year. And I remember one of the most vivid memories I have of last spring when we were talking about this was the student safety forum, and hearing from students about their what they wanted to know about safety at the school. And they said transparency like was the number one thing. It was a very, very small sample size of students, but transparency was what they wanted more of and with respect to safety. And also I know, you know, part of our discussions about the safety plan was maybe just like informing more students about the plan and like the components of it, like why Mr. Lopez is in the building now. I mean, it sounds like, you know, he's settling in super well, which is awesome to hear. But I just wanted to maybe ask others on this committee if you would be interested in, you know, Mr. Mitchell's giving these updates regularly, which is amazing. And maybe is it time for like a spring kind of like whole school safety plan kind of, I don't want to say info session, but just something that's like geared directly towards students to kind of let them know that this has been a year long process. I don't know how others feel about that, or if it's maybe too early because he did start very recently and we still need to hire the other security guard and et cetera, et cetera.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I think it is a little bit too early to start talking about Mr. Lopez, because I think there's been announcements on the speaker and some emails from admin about who Dr. Lopez is, Mr. Lopez. I would say though, to like advertise, like give an update, I don't think a real like live session would be beneficial, just because I think that not many students would show up and that might you know, not inform as many. But I really think like a video, like a pre-recorded video, or like a little newsletter. I know during the pandemic and online learning, Dr. Plunkett and admin would make these little like newsletters and have videos, and I thought they were really helpful. And you know, so I think something like that might be really helpful once we do get that other security person and Mr. Lopez has some more time to like get firmly situated. I think that would be really cool.
Thanks, Daniel. Dr. Plunkett?
You're muted, Dr. Plunkett, if you're speaking.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you, okay, yeah, Daniel, thank you for that feedback. I know like the little newsletters and videos I used to send out, I'd send them out, I think, for Wednesdays, for Eagle Day. I think those might be the things you were referring to. And I think it might be a good idea to kind of get back into that. And then even just with a link to the safety plan, where if students are interested, they can go find it, you know, and like you said, maybe people wouldn't show up to an in-person session necessarily, but we can work on sending out maybe weekly or bi-weekly little like similar to what I was doing for the Eagle Days, right? Like, hey, you know, this is what's going on. This is what our focus is this week. And, you know, I always did my videos from different places in the school because no one mixed around. But yeah, I think that's good feedback to get back to doing something like that. You know, this year has been especially challenging, everyone back in school and so much going on. But I definitely like that idea. And I know not everybody watches the videos, but some people do, some people read. So I think sending out the newsletter like that with the link to the information and the video, as well as the link, you are addressing different people's styles, right? Some people like to watch, some people like to listen, some people like to read. So that's great feedback. And that is definitely something we will look into providing more of in the next, you know, the rest of the semester, so to speak.
Thanks, Dr. Plunkett. Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah. You know, to your question, Rachel, I guess I'm thinking about the context for how we had the whole school safety plan in the first place, right? This stemmed from kind of the district's move and to offer kind of an alternative, because the original question or concern was having SROs in your building. And it's like, if you're choosing not to have SROs, what are you going to do? What is your plan? So this was year one of first making that decision making a very difficult decision about whether or not we want to keep SROs or not. And then, what came of it. So when I hear you ask that question, Rachel, it's kind of like, okay, a year has passed, just kind of updating the community. So since we made that tough decision about, no longer having our SROs, here's what we've got, like some level of progress, updating. Clearly Mr. Lopez hasn't been able to demonstrate kind of, his full value just yet, but just the fact that this position was something that was created, to support Jones more readily, and what we gave up to get what we got. So I kind of, that's how I read the question that you're asking. So can we do something like that to update the community? I suppose, but I also like where Dr. Plunkett was going in terms of, more frequent either updates or check-ins with students, with just kind of overall in terms of how our culture is improving. So kind of two different things, but the way I interpreted your original question is just kind of updating the community from, hey, a year ago, we were struggling with this decision. It was very contentious, for all the reasons. And so since making that decision, here's where we are a year later. So just kind of updating everyone. So I see that, what that could look like, when is the most appropriate time to do it. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to name that, like, that's how I interpreted the way that you were asking that question.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mitchell. I appreciate that, because that's how I interpret it too, because to me, this has been a whole year of transformation, and it's just, it's amazing what you all started and what it's become. And I think that a lot of people would be interested in just reviewing that journey. And I don't know what it looked like, but I think that a video would be fantastic, and documenting where you've been and where you are now, I think is the point. Rachel?
I love video updates with information personally. So yeah, I love that idea. I also just think even last fall, there were some students who came to health and safety committee meetings and were like unaware, and not everyone's going to get the memo, but I think it would be cool, right, to like, people understand the connection between like the whole school safety committee and Mr. Lopez, because it really, like, that was based on feedback, that decision, and also discussions in the community. So just like, I would love to know if people have made that connection, if that's kind of like, oh, there's just a new person here. And then I guess more kind of to the point is like, after a year or 9 months of no SROs, like, how do you feel about school safety? Do you feel like more unsafe? Do you feel equally unsafe? Do you feel more safe? Like, how has that, not just the addition, but how has the removal impacted your experience at the school? I would be curious to know. Yeah, I don't know how others feel about that.
Thanks, Rachel. Cynthia?
My comment was for after this discussion, so I'll jump back in later.
Thanks, Cynthia. Dr. Plunkett? Okay. Yeah, I mean, Rachel, to your point also, and as we're talking about bringing in more student involvement, and I'm thinking of even the next year's class that comes in, how are we going to explain to them, like, why do we have Mr. Lopez, and how did he come to be? I think that would be a great story to tell, and to keep revisiting, because I think that as Mr. Mitchell is reminding us, that decision was hard. That didn't just happen. That was a process, and there was a lot that went into it. So Mr. Lopez is a manifestation of all of that work, and so yeah. So I guess we think about what that looks like, what that update to the whole body looks like, and in the meantime, it sounds like the administration is working on doing that in the meantime through newsletters. So thanks for bringing that up. We are pretty much at the end. I just wanted to ask someone if there are any updates on the trans and gender non-conforming language that was proposed to be added into the student handbook. I don't know if anybody has any updates on that they could share.
So I'll jump in real quick. As it relates to the document that I saw, the draft that you sent me, there has not been an update as it relates to that. The draft as it was written and submitted, I personally don't see an issue with that. I still need to talk to the rest of the team to figure out when that potential update can be put into our school handbook. I know that there was when this conversation initially happened, there was some adjustments made to the website, and I know currently school leaderships have been in conversations, or I'll just say flat out, I've been in conversation with Mr. Coleman in regards to some additional communications centered around just kind of trying to figure out the way to frame it. I guess you could just say kind of health protocols throughout the building. So where students can find a lot of different information that relates to their health and wellness across the board. So this what you guys are asking is kind of included in that larger communication, and so that should go out soon. So I just wanted to name that. But as far as your original question with what was submitted, I think, like I said, what's written there is going to be similar to the other level of communication. But the question of it being added to the handbook, I think that should not be problematic for the upcoming school year. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks, Mr. Mitchell. And then we just had some announcements about the upcoming meetings. So in April, we're going to be talking about building accessibility, elevator capacity, and Section 504 compliance. And then in May, we're going to talk about reporting sexual and other misconduct training in Title IX. And beyond that, are there any other announcements for this committee or anything else that we skipped? I guess also I would, I was curious to know from this group if you're good with continuing on and having meetings virtually for the two last meetings.
Do we get to choose that? Because I think for LSC meetings, or do we have to go back?
This is unclear to me.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
cool
As a
with
sub-
being
as a-
on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, as a subcommittee, don't you have a little more flexibility in terms of how we're going to meet? I thought that the rules aren't as strict as they are for specific LSC meetings. So if we were to make that decision as you just asked, for it to be virtual for the last two meetings for this school year, I don't know that should be a problem.
Well, I think we just have to follow whatever the guidelines are. Like I don't mind either way. I don't mind keeping this group virtual or in person either way. I just think we have to make sure that if there is a guideline that we have to follow, and I'm pretty unclear on it right now, that we just follow the guidelines so that we're all in compliance with whatever the guidelines are. That would be my 2 cents. I don't mind, personally, I don't mind either way, but I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we make sure that we're doing it properly and following the proper CPS guidelines.
Okay, so I guess I will follow up, right? Cynthia will follow up and figure out what those guidelines are.
Can I chime in real quick?
Yeah.
So there was a question about the last Tuesday's LSC meeting, whether or not it was going to be in person, because the governor of Illinois, basically when he issued a disaster declaration, that's what allowed the public meetings to be virtual. And so he had been renewing that declaration. And so there's a question of whether or not he was going to renew it. I was fully ready to come in person last Tuesday. And then a few days before the meeting, he renewed the declaration. And then that gave the chair of the LSC and then all LSCs across the city the option. It was the chair's discretion, basically, to determine which one they preferred. So Lenny, I think it's up to you. And Cindy.
Yeah, Dr. Plunkett.
Yeah, like, so at this point, the chair, I guess, if we're a subcommittee of the LLC, I would assume that it would follow the same guidelines, but like that could change. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know when the governor, that could change, you know, people could push back on it. People might say, okay, so we just have to like, I don't want us to say, oh, we're going to continue in Zoom, and then when's our meeting? Like in April 1st, they say, no, you have to meet in person, right? So I just want to make sure that, like I said, I personally don't mind either way. I just want to make sure that if they do tell us to meet in person, that we meet in person and we do what's right. I just don't want to be caught in a place where we're not doing the right thing.
Sure.
I'm sorry, when I said that, when you were trying to delegate that to me, Lenny, I'm not part of the LSC and I don't know anything about these rules. I would be starting from negative 100 at this point to figure out if we're supposed to meet. So
I think maybe what we'll do is just follow what the general LSC is doing, which is continuing to meet virtually. If that's okay with everyone. Yeah.
I
All right.
put the declaration in the chat if you want to read it. It's just like, yeah, official from the governor.
Thanks. Thanks, Rachel. Yeah, I think that we'll follow along with that until further notice then, and then just presume that we're going to be on Zoom, if that's okay. Well, it's 7. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Plunkett. You're on mute. Okay, Cynthia.
I think that was an old hand. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just dropped an ask from the other safety committee, the building safety committee. They asked, they suggested maybe a student directed PSA regarding COVID safety. And the drama club put something together, and that's the PSA that they put together. It's on masking, so I don't know how relevant it is anymore, but I thought it was great that they put that together. Pretty much, I just suggested it and they just ran with it. So
That's great. I love it. Is it long? I'll watch it later. That's great. Thank you. I think that we're at the end of our meeting. So does anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Anyone second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And then we'll roll call Daniel,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Lenny, yes. Dr. Plunkett? You're on mute.
Yes, I don't know. My phone is not unmuting. Something's wrong with the touch screen. Yes.
Thank you, thank you. And Rachel?
Yes.
All right, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for contributing. I really appreciate you very, very much. Stay well. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thanks.